If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by portrait photography, or just at a loss of what to focus on to take you to that next level, then come hang with me. I help guide portrait photographers just like you to stay clear and sharp in camera and with your goals. I'm your host, photographer, educator, and weirdly positive mama for Emily Supio. And this is the Stay Focused podcast. Photography advice to help you stay focused. Well, hey everyone, it's Emily Supio, and thank you so much for pressing play on today's episode of the Stay Focused podcast. Now, I don't know if I have ever told you this or really broke down my pricing before, but when I first started out shooting clients, shooting for money, starting an actual, mini business or side hustle, my very first client paid me $50. And I was really excited about that. And if right now you are charging $50 and feeling excited about that, then I am excited for you too. But the thing was that I realized probably 60 days later, it wasn't too long after that, I realized that it was taking me a lot of time and a lot of my energy to shoot clients at only $50 a session. And when I raised my prices, it was, like I said, about 2 months later, and I raised my prices more than double, $125. And I thought I had made it. I thought I was finally going to start making enough money that I could leave my teaching job and have extra time to be with my kids. Well, I've got to be really honest. It probably was another 60 days that I realized that that wasn't going to cut it either, and that I was actually losing money and a lot of my time from charging that price. Now, when I give prices like 50 and 125, remember that that is relative to me and what I wanted to accomplish as a photographer, the area that I was in. So the numbers that I'm giving you right now may or may not be relative to you. And that's what I'm going to talk about on the podcast today with pricing expert Ingvild Kolnes. She's coming to us from the other side of the world. She has been in the photography world for over 13 years, and she's sharing some of the biggest mistakes new photographers make when it comes to pricing. And as she's talking to me today, you'll see me shaking my head because so much of what she said I did in the beginning too. And I wish that I would have had someone to tell me, no, don't do this, because I would have started becoming more sustainable as a business much, much sooner. I think you're really going to love today's episode. I'm going to bring Ingvild out in just a few minutes, and she's going to be sharing some of the most common pricing mistakes, plus that magic number that you need to know when starting to price your photography services. If you've been listening to the Stay Focused podcast all month long, you know that I've been chatting with contributors to the creative collaboration. And I am so excited to announce that it is open starting today. You can check out over $11,000 worth of photography education for only $97. You can check out that direct link in the show notes or in the description wherever you're listening to this podcast today. It's a fantastic deal, everyone. You're definitely going to want to check out all that is included in this photography education bundle. The only catch is that it's only available once a year, and it's only available throughout this week. So you want to make sure you check that out and take advantage of this before it's gone. All right, everyone, I have Ingvild Kolnes on the show with us today. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. So excited to talk.
I'm so excited to chat with you too. Now, Ingvild, where are you at right now? Where are you located?
So I'm in Norway.
Okay, I knew you were not in the United States, and I can tell by your accent, it's so cool. So all the way across the world, you guys, because I know a lot of you are listening from the United States right now. So this is really a treat to have you on the show with us today. So Ingvild, for those people who are listening right now who maybe don't know who you are, who are you? What is it that you do, and who do you help?
Oh, yeah. So I started out as a photographer probably about 13 years ago. So I've been through a lot, tried and tested different things. And I realized a few years ago that there was kind of like something missing. I felt like I was more passionate about helping others. After you've been doing something for a while, you kind of get used to getting a lot of questions and you realize that, oh, maybe this is something that I kind of know better than some other people. And maybe there's something I can do to help out and make sure that others don't feel as alone and worried and make all the same mistakes that I did. So that's when I decided to start making some more educational stuff. So I've made a podcast and I have some online programs that I teach other photographers that are feeling, burnt out and stressed out and feeling like something is missing so that they can focus more on photography instead of the business side, which is what I'm passionate about, just helping people make sure that their prices are right and they're reaching the right people.
I love that. You're my kind of person. I love education, and you probably have already guessed that too. I love talking with photographers like you who, they've done it before and they see that there are people out there that need a little bit of extra help that haven't done it before. And there's so many photographers out there that I feel like are very secretive about what they've learned and don't want to share that. And so when I come across people, like you and a lot of the photographers that I chat with on the podcast, I really just love that mindset around helping other people. So thank you for being one of those photographers. Now, Ingvild, I know you said that you've been at this for 13 plus years now. And I always love to let these new photographers know and be aware of that it didn't happen overnight. Like, you've been at it for 13 years and you're very successful now. You're a wedding photographer and you're so successful, you can now take what you've learned and help other people. It wasn't always like that though. Okay. So first and foremost, you guys, she said it's taken her 13 years. So let's rewind 13 years ago. What did it look like for you when you were very first starting out, when you got your new camera? Why did you want to take pictures? And what was that beginning journey like for you?
Yeah, so I decided I wanted to be a photographer when I was traveling. I was backpacking and I was like, do I really want to go back home to have like a normal 9 to 5 job? And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. And then for some reason I thought that because I've been taking a lot of photos while I was traveling and I was like, yeah, I could do this. Can't be that hard. And then, you start out and it's a hobby and then you realize like it's actually a lot more to it than to take photos. But to me, that's what I thought it was, just taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started out, I charged next to nothing. I did my first wedding I was living in the UK at the time, and I charged £150 for my first wedding. And 150 pounds. It's like, ooh, feels like a lot of money for just a couple of hours work. Mm-hmm. That's how it feels when you get started, for many people at least, and it did for me. And I had no idea what I was doing, like none whatsoever. I could take some photos, but they weren't that good. And I had no idea how a wedding kind of flowed. I didn't know about anything. But I kind of managed to do the first few ones just like for a quite low price. And then after a while, I increased my prices kind of gradually. And then after a couple of years, or maybe probably even more than a couple of years, I did the math and I realized I'm actually not making any money. People around me are telling me, oh, it's so expensive. You're so expensive. It costs so much money. And then in reality, I was not making any money. I was spending money because it costs money to have a business. There are expenses. So in reality, I was paying money to get to photograph people's weddings. And it's like, that's not a business. That's an expensive hobby. And then, that was one mistake that I made. I was like, yeah, so I didn't charge any money or not enough money. And the other mistake that I made, I just figured as long as someone was getting married, that was all I needed. I didn't have to think about if it's a good fit for me. I didn't even know there was such a thing as, a right fit or not that good of a fit. So I just said yes to anything that came my way. And that, of course, led to me getting more of those kinds of weddings that I didn't want to do, more of the kind of people who didn't really want to pay. So it kind of just snowballs when you start saying yes to everything and you don't really have any reason to stand out, because it's just a matter of just kind of blending in and just taking what comes your way. And that does not work long term. It probably can work for a little while, and then it's just like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think that's so relatable to so many new photographers out there, because we want that. It is like, just like you said, 150 pounds. I'm not sure how much that is in dollars. I am not sure the conversion on that right now, but
probably
not a
about
lot.
the same.
Yeah,
like $150.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I think, just like you were saying, you were thinking like, wow, people are paying me. And I think in the beginning, a lot of new photographers, and maybe you guys listening right now, that's how you're feeling too. Like, oh, $50 or $25. Isn't this cool? I'm getting a little bit of money. And so relatable to what you said about just taking on anybody who is getting married, or anyone. For you listening right now, if it's, families or kids or maternity, whatever it is that you want to shoot, you're just taking it all, because I get that feeling. It's exciting. It's exciting to get those clients and they're like, ooh, they want to pay me something. And so you just do it all. So if you're there right now, it's okay. I feel like it's part of the process of becoming a photographer, but just know that in the back of your mind, it can't be sustainable that way. And I'm glad that you bring that message out to people. And Ingvild, I know you talk and you teach a lot about pricing, and I feel like a lot of newer photographers get really hung up on pricing and trying to understand that. They know in the beginning, I think a lot of us hear that message that, you can't charge pennies, you can't charge just a minimum amount. Why do you think it's so difficult to pinpoint what your value should be or what your price should be? Because we get so hung up on, well, what should I charge? What should I charge? Why do you think that's such a difficult question, or a difficult thing to wrap your head around?
I think it's the same for anything that you don't know, because unless you've gone to, I don't know, taken some kind of course on this is how to price, it's not something you just are naturally born with knowing. So a lot of photographers will do the easy thing, which is to just look at other photographers and base your price on that. You'll see someone who's been at it for some time and like, oh, I have to be lower than that. And then you see someone that's been doing it kind of as long as you have, and you might think, oh, maybe that's where I should be. And then maybe you put your price a little bit lower, maybe because you're not feeling confident enough, or so it's a lot of guesswork. And sometimes people also get good at calculating. They'll start working it out and they'll start thinking like, okay, so I need a new camera this year, so that's something I need to add in. And I have a pick time to deliver my photos, I need to add that on. And then a lot of the times you forget about the future expenses, like things that you need to set aside for the equipment you need to replace next year or the year after that. And then most times, I would say almost all the time, I look at people's prices, they're way too low because they haven't actually figured everything out. And it's one of those things that comes with experience, when you realize that, oh, I've not calculated everything. There's something that I haven't figured out. But I also think that it's something that you can learn early on, and you should learn it early on, because if you do what I did, which is to start with way too low prices, then it's really hard to kind of rectify that and to get to the level where you need to go. So if you do it the way I did, where I started really low and then I incrementally increased my prices little by little, then every time I increased my prices, I had to start over again, because all my referrals were no good anymore, because then people were like, oh, but you photographed my friend last year, and then the prices were like this and that. It's like, yeah, but I know that was way too low. So I would not recommend that. I would recommend figuring out what you need to charge early on. And I think that the reason that for a lot of people it's a hard subject is because it's something that we don't talk enough about. I think that we kind of just like, it's secretive for many. If you don't have your prices public, then you might think like, this isn't something we should talk about. We should just kind of guess. And also I think, since photography is such a passionate thing for most photographers. Like we start off and it's a hobby, and then it's like, I want to do it no matter what I get paid. Then that's just what happens. You'll just do it. And then money is kind of like, it's not that important, even though you do want to make a living from it. But you're like, yeah, it's better to get paid something than to not get any bookings, because I want to do it so much. But then it just doesn't work, and it's not sustainable whatsoever. And even though if you want it to be a job, whether it's a part-time job or a full-time deal, being a photographer, then you have to make sure that your prices are profitable. It's just, there's just no way around it.
Yeah, that so resonates with me. And I think it probably connects with a lot of you listening too, because I remember that too, just thinking like, oh, people are paying me, this is so fun. And it was something I already liked doing anyway. So I didn't put a lot of thought behind my pricing in the beginning. Now that has changed a lot now. But so where would someone start? Let's say they know that they want to get into business, either part or full-time. And I think exactly what you said. I think most people will start looking at their competition and they will pick a price based on that. I think I did that too. I think like I can picture and everything you were saying, I can picture like young me doing that same thing. But so weird, if that's not the answer, let's talk about where you would start. Like, is there a magic number you start with, or like, what do you recommend? So if it's not looking at the competition, what is it?
Yeah. So, well, first I feel like I have to mention that I don't want anyone to feel ashamed if how they're figured out their prices is by looking at others, because most of us, that's what we've done. And certainly what I did, and it doesn't work. So there's no judgment. I'm just saying that it's not helpful either, because you have no idea if other people are booking, even though they're saying so on Instagram, it doesn't mean it's true. And you don't know how profitable they are. You don't know anything about their expenses, or if they, have a rich person behind them supporting them. You don't know anything. So that's why it's like, there's no judgment. But I would say that you need to start by figuring out how much money you actually need to get paid. And I actually like to think almost like worst case. I don't want you to think like, ooh, if I save a lot and if I work really, if I make sure I don't spend any money, then I can get by on this. I don't want you to think about it like that. I don't want you to think about like what's the least amount of money I can survive on. I want you to think almost like worst case. So how much money do I need to get by if I get divorced, or if I have another child, or like what's the worst case scenario? And that's what you need to think about as your number. So you need to make sure that you can get by even though bad things might happen, because something unforeseen is bound to happen. So you need to take that into consideration. And then I also want you to think about like, how much do I want to work? Like, do I want to work every single week? Do I want to have vacations off? What is it? What kind of a life do you want? And then you need to figure out how many sessions that is, whether that's weddings or something else. And you just kind of need to start by dividing those numbers up. So that means that you have to think about the money you want to get paid. How much money does that mean you have to make as your revenue? For most, you actually have to double it. So if you think like, okay, so I want to make $50,000, then you have to double it to get your revenue in most cases. So that's $100,000, and then you have to divide that by the number of shoots you want to do. So that's to get a ballpark figure. But in honesty, I would do the actual math and sit down with everything that I think I'm gonna have to spend money on, and try to think like how many shoots do I actually want, if I think about how much energy I have and what my time is like to crunch the numbers.
Now, this is why I think a lot of people go to the route of just looking up their competitors, because it's a lot. You've really got to think into yourself and think about the business you want to have, the photographer you want, the life you want, your lifestyle. Like there's so many things. And Ingvild, as you were saying all of these questions to think about, if you guys are serious about starting either a part or full-time business, I think you need to rewind just the past couple minutes and like rewind and listen and stop and really start pulling apart every question you just asked, right? And I know she went quick and I know she wasn't meaning to, but as she's going through this, I'm thinking like, that's good. That's a good point. That's a great question. That's a great question. And I heard you list off at least 10, probably more questions that you guys need to ask yourself as a photographer. So rewind, start writing those down and really start thinking about yourself. And that's how you're going to get that magic number. That's how you're going to get that price. And yes, it's harder, right, than just looking at your competition. But that I love every question that you just posed for anyone that's listening right now, because I think that's going to help you become more successful right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Now, Ingvild, you and I are part of the Creative Collaboration, which is out February 27th. It might already be out now, if depending on when you guys are listening to this episode, but you go even deeper into pricing and pricing yourself correctly in that. Can you tell us more about the course that you have contributed to the Creative Collaboration?
Sure, absolutely. So I talk about mindset in the course that I've made, because mindset is something that's often overlooked. We think like, oh, I just need the numbers and then that's it. But there's so much to running a business. You have to actually dare to ask for the money. You have to dare to charge. You have to think about how your mind works to make sure that you can actually charge what you need to. I also talk about how you calculate, or at least like what to base your figures on, because again, I went through it quite quickly here, but there's so many things to think about and there's so many ways of doing it, but we just try to make it really simple and make sure that you at least have an overview so that you don't have to do that. I would call it dangerous thing of looking at others, because again, you might be fully booked and then you realize that, oh, actually I'm losing money, just like I realized. And that's what I want you to avoid. And then I also talk about the most common pricing mistakes that you definitely don't want to do. So yeah, I think it's really important to talk about that, especially because, I've made most of them myself. So that's why I don't want others to do things the way I've done it.
Sure. And you guys, I have made mistakes. I'm probably made the same ones that you have made. So with so much education and so many photographers out there now that like to share and not keep things secret, like to be educators as well, it should seem very streamlined and at least a little easier for you to get started. And I love that you've included your pricing course, because that's such an important component of starting even a side hustle, you guys, even a part-time business. So I keep liking to bring that up because I know a lot of you are just in that stage where you're kind of tinkering with the idea, but setting yourself up for success with pricing is super important. Now, like I said, we're part of the creative collaboration together, and I'm super excited about that. You guys need to check that out, because it's not just Ingvild and me. It's like over 50 other photographers too that are also educators. So much value in that. But if you would like to learn more about Ingvild, if you'd like to check out her pictures, check out more of what she has to offer, where can they do that?
Oh, yeah. So I would say go to my podcast, Sustainable Photography, and check that out. And then you'll find me on Instagram at Ingvild Kolnes, where I do share some photos, and I also share some educational tips and tricks for photographers. So yeah, definitely go to Ingvild Kolnes on Instagram.
Perfect. And you know what? In the show notes or the description, wherever you guys are listening right now, I'll have those direct links. So you guys can just click that, go over to her Instagram real quick and check her out. Let her know you listened to the show today. Ingvild, I so appreciate you being here from all the way on the other side of the world today. Thank you so much for all you shared for new photographers on pricing. I really, really appreciate that. And I appreciate what you do for the photography community. All right, so much to think about, everyone, when it comes to pricing yourself as a photographer and a photography business. And what I really want to hone in on again is that it is unique to you. It is unique to yourself as a photographer and what you want to accomplish. So like I said, when I was chatting with Ingvild, go back, rewind, really listen to some of those mindset questions she was asking you, and that's going to help you find that magic number. Now, remember, Ingvild and I are both a part of the creative collaboration, which opens February 27th. It is over 50 photography educators that have offered their full courses, guides, and more. It is really, really amazing. All of the value that is in there for new to intermediate photographers who are looking to learn more. These classes are not sample classes, you guys. It's the full courses, so it's really cool. The only catch with this is that it's only available for 1 week. So if you're like, sounds interesting, I want to know more, click in the description wherever you are listening from, or the show notes page right on cozyclicks.com. You can get all of the information, all the details on every single course that's available in the creative collaboration. Did I mention it's only $97? It's like the steal. It's the best deal in photography education all year. But again, it's only once a year, and it's only happening right now. So go check that out. It's linked up in the show notes for you. Maybe it's something you're interested in, maybe not, but I kind of think you're really going to love it. All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening today. I hope you learned a little more about how to set your prices, or at least how to wrap your mindset around how to set your prices. This whole week, I have got even more guest speakers that will be on the show that are all part of the creative collaboration too. So make sure to hit that subscribe button over on iTunes so you don't miss any of the episodes that are coming your way. I think you're going to like it. I'm super excited. You guys can probably tell I'm starting to talk fast because I'm so excited. So let's end right now. Let me take a deep breath and say, until next time, here's to staying in focus, in camera, and with your goals. Bye, everyone.